Good morning, everybody. Good morning. We are packed full of people here. We're at Bexel Burbank. My name's Pat Grosswendt, part of Litepanels group, technical assistance and lighting improviso or something of that English tutorial comment. We've got Alan and Nikki Benty. Alan's with Litepanels, Nikki's with Bexel. We're going to give you guys just an opening view of what we're going to be showing you in close-ups here. And it's such a wide shot, a little bit empty, but it's showing you that we're in the old camera prep room at Bexel Burbank. I need to take a second to thank, first of all, Jace Benty for putting this whole thing on. She's been fantastic working with Litepanels, getting the Bexel team to welcome us in here. Everybody from Alex and his team's out on the floor to Sean in here with camera crew. Got a couple people manning this today that are really important. We've got people that I know by face, but I have to read their names just as a reminder. We've got Frank running camera, and we've got David on sound, and we've got Gerard on switcher. And the idea about today is that we're going to give you some insight into how to use Litepanels in an environment that many of you are already involved in or know about, and at the same time, some of you are not. We kind of want to give you a basics of lighting for certain environments. This one we're going to open up in, and I know we're way down here in the back of field, and we're very minute in the setting, but so you can get a scope of how small it is. A lot of the setups that we're going to do today are really practical setups. And one of the more important ones is for all the cameramen and women out there working with Litepanel products in the announcer's booth. So this is kind of set up to show an announcer's booth, which is a very small space. And many of you out there in the market are already working with a lot of the network sports producers and distributors, your TNTs, your CBSs, your Fox, ESPN, ABC. You're familiar with Litepanel products. And just on the left edge of your frame, you're going to see that we've got basically 2x1s of the 1x1 light panels. So these are set up as a light source a lot of times in your booths. And so that's the environment we're showing you now. So we're going to go to another camera position, and we're going to offer you up a look at the talent under this light. So go ahead and, Gerard, let's switch over to the green screen shot, right? And I'm kind of walking around in the midst of all this to make sure I'm seeing the right image you guys are. Now what we've done here today is something I think that's pretty interesting, which is not that it's a green screen, because everybody's familiar with green screens and blue screens, but we've got a digital green screen. Now the difference between digital and chroma, can you guys point to that green screen behind you? Well done. Let's switch over to what their background is. Okay, so we're suddenly in a night setting in a sound booth or a camera booth at a stadium. The lighting on this green screen is light for the talent. And what we have them is about an arm's length away from this digital green. Now everybody's afraid of using digital green because they say it puts a lot of reflections on the skin tone. We are using today a kayak system switcher. And the value in a great switcher, be it kayak or on a lower budget, something that's of a good quality, new tech for instance. Having a really good switcher is very important to your matte element. So with the digital green, you can see we're not really getting a lot of spill problems. And what we've done is we've actually killed two birds with one stone. Sorry, the pun, guys. We've actually put light on the green screen as we're lighting the talent. And from what you saw before, we have the camera dead center. We're at about 7 feet from the talent, along 7'6" if you're a basketball player. And we've got a 2x1 on the left of camera. We've got a 2x1 over the center of camera, and we've got a 2x1 to the right of that. So we're basically creating just a little half moon, if you will, of lights. And that light is lighting our talent. If I was to kill one light on the side, you can see the diminished value. I want you to watch what's happening in regards to the switcher and how well that green screen is working. At this point, we really only have one light working, which is dead center of the set, over the camera. Gerard, are we getting clipping? Are we okay? we're okay. So remember, it's not the amount of lights, it's where you put the lights. And especially today, with the fact that we have so good chips, fast lenses, that really the setting of the light is so important. Now, you know you have talent. Talent doesn't want to be blinded. Phil Sims loved our products when we first brought them in over at one of his shows because he would always squint from the lights. Now, that's the whole idea about having this Halfmoon Arch. If I turn on the left-hand side of camera's lights only, and I turn off the center lights, and bear with us, and then turn on the other camera right side lights, we have a more full look. And what this does is also it puts the lights in the talent's view in their peripheral. It's not directly over the camera. It's a lot easier for them to look at the lens and see it and not be squinting. So I'm sure you've all found that out. The placement of the lights is important for talent, but at the same time, we're cross-lighting. We're using the light on the camera right side to light the talent from the right and have it go to its left, and the opposite from the lights on the left of camera. They're panning to the right and falling off. So one light is becoming kind of like a key light on one talent and becoming the fill on the other because the other side is crossing in the opposite direction. If that's confusing, look back at the beginning of this or watch for the video clip that we're going to edit and send out so you can kind of go over it again. We'll go over in detail with a B camera we're using to film this right now. The whole idea is you don't need as much light as necessary. Now that's on a night shoot. On the day shoot, what'll traditionally happen is you're going to have a very bright background. These 2x1s are being used now in a setting for a lower light outside exterior. We have 3x1s that Bexel provides. The 3x1s are also like these. They're bifocus. They allow you the ability to flood them or spot them. And the 3x1s gives you more punch. And more punch means that you're going to have a better chance of balancing to the background. You've got a double net that you usually have to put to cut the background down in between the window opening. And a lot of times what we'll end up using now is the introduction of the Fernells or the Helios. They're very high output lights that directionally can be set to pump up more light value on the talent. How's it out there, guys? Is it getting cold with that night sky behind you? Yeah, freezing cold. But is it hot under the lights, or are they nice and cool?
I can't even feel that they're on.
I think you could hear it, but she can't even feel any heat from those lights, which is kind of a distraction on a cold night. So this is the basis of the Newscasters Challenge on a location. If you've got an exterior that you're seeing that is requiring you to use a large amount of light because it's so bright outside, remember where you're putting them. The brighter they are, try to have them just in the peripheral view of the talent and washing across it. It's a very small area when you give it consideration. It's probably only about 5 feet of body space we're taking up, so everything could be focused in. As you see here, them close to each other, these ring of lights, if you will, having enough output to give you a balance towards the daylight. And that's something that we're working on for all of you out there that are fighting that net and then having to drop it and run to the 50-yard line camera when they cut to commercial before kickoff. We're hopefully going to have some more equipment that Bexel will be sending out for testing that will possibly alleviate you having to use that net. Now, before we leave the green screen setup, one other thing I want to talk about is skin tone. We know that a lot of you are put in a situation where you may have African-American talent or Mexican-American or Caucasian side by side in a setup. We don't want to just pound them with more light necessarily. You can use the value of the camera sensor to increase the light output with an extra unit on that one talent. But you might actually, in a daylight setting like we're using here, which is all daylight, the camera set of daylight, because the camera loves and the monitors love daylight as a white balance, we might add maybe an 1/8 orange correction to one of the lights on those talent with the olive or darker skin. Remember, it's all reflective value. but we want that spectrum to penetrate some of the skin tones and enrich them instead of bouncing light off of them that becomes just hot spots. So where a number of you are using a lighting setup like we're showing you, you've actually added a Helio or a Sola 6 or a Sola 4 to the talent that's requiring a little bit more light to balance them out with the background. Even on field, the Helio is working as a light source that is going to give you a lot of light to balance with daylight and be able to recognize the talent, skin tone or not. So we're going to have some more detail on this in the following link to show you the different units in regards to the Helio and this and that. But just for time and not boring you entirely, we're going to jump from this setup to another setup. Now, Gerard, let's switch over to this camera where we're wide, showing them right now. Okay, so Alan, thanks very much. And Nikki, have a seat in this chair here. And we're going to do a close-up, a one-person interview. Now, in this wide shot, you have kind of an idea of what you're seeing. It is, again, when it's a controlled lighting environment, and you can add units intensity-wise depending on the value of what you're looking for. Can we go now to the A camera? And we have 3 lights in this setup. So again, it's not a matter of how much light you're using, but where you're putting them. Remember the value that the camera has in regards to seeing with lower light levels. And this is something I think that is going to be of great interest for a number of you that are going out and doing maybe interview shots for the first time. We're going to use a 3-light E&G kit. You're going to see more of this in the B shot. I know it's dark right now. Nikki's sitting here in the dark, but she's not in the dark. She's surrounded by friends that love her. Now, we've got the traditional backlight. This backlight is being operated with a Sola E&G. And what we're doing is we're just trying to create a little bit of separation. In the background, I'm running my hand in front of another E&G that's basically just got some kitchen aluminum foil on it and took a knife and punched a bunch of holes in it just to create a pattern. And what that's doing is it's not just allowing for separation from this backlight, but it's putting something interesting into a drab, dead wall that you could flat light, but the camera doesn't need it. The camera just needs something to see depth of field. And depending on your focus, it's going to be something that is a distraction if it's too bright or too flat. Now what we've got here is we've got an E&G on a softbox. Alan, let me have that battery, please. I'm going to cross lens. We'll show you a close-up of this plate, but what's beautiful about it is there's not a lot of people around when you're doing interview. It's pretty much you running the camera, running the cords, setting audio, setting everything. Here's another one of the E&Gs in the 3-light E&G kit. By being on a battery, I can decide what's going to be the best angle for the talent that I have today. I can be steep with it and dramatic. I'm holding it up in the air. You'll see this in the B cut. We'll do a side-by-side as this is going on in the final version. But the idea is that with the battery power, you've got the availability to set the lights where you want without too many restrictions of cords and crossovers and audio hums. And it's really helpful as you're trying to set the proper light for the talent. Now, in our case here with Nikki, we're lucky. No matter what light we put on her, she looks fantastic. But the reality of it is always going to be something that if you spend too much time at it, it is going to become very, very overlit. Sometimes if you walk into a location, you'll find that window in the background is a perfect thing to balance against. And what we've done here is we've just added one more light. The 4th light we've added from the side is this 1x1 battery operated bicolor. Now I can take the intensity of it down, bring it up. I can adjust so maybe I don't have too much contrast. It's really in your view, what light looks best. Now, lighting to eye is probably the best thing, but you're going to look at your monitor. So I'm going to look to you, Frank, and say, how's that look on the monitor right now?
It's good.
You like the balance?
Yes. All around.
And Joyce?
Kevin, I like the balance.
I said Kevin. There it is. Joyce has corrected me once again. You know, I don't have the time to put my glasses on, take my cue card out, and I'm mentally retarded. I don't know how I've gotten this far in my career, but again, the idea is that we can take this setup and we can start off wide, and I don't know the controls, but I think this probably zooms in, right? And that's how I break equipment. You'll notice now that we're a little tighter, the difference between a side fill from the 1x1. Okay, and I've got this 1x1 at about 70%. I can go down a little bit less. If you look in the back wall, I'm putting my hand in front of the E and G. And if you look at the backlight, nice edge. If the hair light is a little too bright, just bring the door down and keep the light on her shoulders. It gives her separation. And again, on the key light, it's another E&G with the softbox. Very simple. I can come in until I start to invade camera space. I could flip the key. I could come from this side. But that doesn't look as well when I've got a fill coming from that side already with that 1x1 bicolor. So coming around, adding a little bit of shadow and contrast. Her look is always to the lens because she's being interviewed just off camera by somebody. So the look is going to be probably where my hand is, which is right now in this situation placed to the left of the lens. Okay, any questions out there in video world? Come on, guys, type in a question. What time are bagels ready? They're here. Why aren't you? All right, a little comedy. We're supposed to be having fun. So again, it's up to you in regards to what kind of look you want to create. We're using a total of 30 watts for the E&G, so that's times 390. We're using another 45 for the 1x1. I'm just giving everybody a chance to do the math. That's 135 watts. Drop 2 zeros, that means we're using 1.3, or if you're carrying the 5, 1.4 amps to light this setup. No heat. You're looking at me. Look at the camera, please. There you go. Fantastic. We're using very little power, and how that equates to you in the field is very small transportation package, very quick setup that you can adjust to in regards to the light levels. When you walk into a set, don't think about blocking all the sunlight or other lights on and off. Take advantage of what's happening so you're adding just a small amount. And different videographers have a different style. Some may add a little bit of a kick light that will come in and catch the back of her hair over here just to do a little separation. Again, there's no wrong way to light as long as it looks good. The only wrong way to light is when it takes too long and the producer doesn't want to call you back. So I think this kind of is a pretty much a good example of one-person interview lighting. Anybody in the audience have any questions? One at a time, please. Yes, Joyce.
Before LED lighting, before this technology came out, how many watts of light would you need to basically accomplish what you just accomplished?
Great question. Joyce asked, if you couldn't hear it on my lav, how many lights or what kind of lights would we have used in the past? And everybody out there with scars on their fingertips knows they're called tungsten or HMIs. They get very hot. They'll burn your fingertips if they're hot and you're moving them or adjusting them. And the tendency of most lighting setups with the legacy products such as a tungsten 1x1 with a softbox or a lull soft, you're producing a lot of light that you then have to manipulate. So on the E&G that I showed you an example of earlier with the softbox on it that we're using as a key, traditionally that would have been either an HMI light or a quartz light with a chimera or a 4x4 frame of diffusion, nobody ever really uses lights raw. And when I say raw, that means without diffusion, without some sort of light shaping device. That is why the light panel 1x1s have been so well accepted and used. With all those LEDs pushed so close together, they have a big broad source, which is what you get out of a softbox in the end result. But they're also projecting all the light in the same place. So that soft effects off the start with the intensity is why so many people have graduated to it. Now, when we look at a Fernell, such as our E&G, which is actually a Fernell, you can focus them, spot or flood. I can take this unit and I can spot it in. I'll gain more intensity. Even though it's going through the softbox, it is focusing it into a tighter area of that softbox. The value of that with a Fernell is you can use it in a lot of different ways, as a spot, as a flood, as a medium flood, with a softbox, through a frame of diffusion. So getting back to the fact that any light, for the most part, is never unattended with some sort of, it would have some sort of diffusion on it or a softbox on it. So if you're softening the light and you're adding a double wire to it to take the intensity down because it's too bright, because we know that if we dim it, it's choking the voltage and the color temperature is going to change. When you have a light, and it's a 1K because that's what they sent out, or an Area 650 or a 300, for the most part you have too much light. So you drop a double in it to drop down the intensity, you put a softbox on it to take the value of the light from harsh and hard to soft and projected, and the next thing you know, you've got light output that's equivalent to 150 or 200 watts instead of 600 or 500 that you started with. So the waste is what we call heat. The light is what we call visible heat based on tungsten legacy products. So the setup question that Joyce started with is how many lights or how many watts will we have been using? On average for a setup like this, anywhere from 1,500 to 3,000. You've got 3 lights minimal in a 3-point lighting setup. So the point being, if it's 500 watts, we're using 500 watts. Even if we dim it down, we're still drawing 500 watts worth of amperage. So right away you can see where the savings is as far as quickness of setup, and also how the value of the quality of light is. You know you're not going to necessarily use it hard. You're going to use it softened. We can take the light and we can manipulate it very easily because there's very little weight in an LED light. This light here, I've moved from the floor to an overhead position. I can take the light and swing it around to the side. Take a look at me, just look up here even more. There you go. So there's a very well-known pose, which is looking up into the light. Back onto the floor in a standing position. Having the ability to manipulate that light as quickly and freely as you want is what everybody's looking for, because nobody has time and nobody has manpower. Budgets are being shrunk, manpower is being shrunk, and creativity is being demanded. So when you have better knowledge of the tools available to you as an option, which is what you have here at Bexel with any piece of equipment you're looking for, you realize the significance of knowing that when they have the brand leading products, you're getting quality products. Knowing what those products do is up to you, taking the interest in finding out what they do or why they do it. You'll notice that we don't have any RGB LED technology here. We don't need it necessarily for such a simple setup. If this was a large setup, I would love to use RGB in the background to create primary colors that create separation between the key light that's lighting the talent, that of all things we want to stand out. And those are either going to be tungsten or daylight, or somewhere in between. The background, it's architectural, it's environmental. So you want to manipulate the colors. And if you know from your camera trips, or those of you that came from the film world, the latitude between tungsten and daylight is so great that the minute you start to get them opposite of each other, the colors become more extreme. And so theatrically, you'll see a lot of blues in the background, but your talent will be lit in tungsten. But what we're doing here is we're using daylight, for our talent light. And that background element that you see putting a pattern on a wall is actually a daylight unit with a full blue added to make it even more intense than the overall key value. And so we've manipulated the color via a piece of gel that's very simple and easy to carry. I could have done the same thing by putting an orange gel on there. But I think blue in this light works really well with the gray background. Did that answer your question, Joyce?
Yes, exactly.
Great. Yes, sir.
How many hours is the battery life?
The battery for the E&G, that is that a 16.6 or is that
140 watt hour.
140 watt hours? So that'll probably run that light 30 to 140, 4.5 hours or so. Remember, if you're dimming the light down, using less power. So we have a lot of people on the fields that are running around, standing by, turning the lights off and on. Those lights on the 1x1 for field interviews, they'll run for a day, as long as you're dimming it down or taking it and turning it off and on. So it's very advantageous to have batteries. It's very advantageous when you're working with a company like Bexel that has all this equipment. Say, hey, do you want some batteries to run your light panels? It's not necessarily an upsell, but it sure makes them realize, hey, I forgot all about that battery option. That's a great choice because where I'm going, I'm going to need it. Shooting in Hawaii in the jungles, we took 1x1s, a battery, bought backpacks at Kmart, went up into the jungles and shot all day. It was fantastic. Just have the people become human tripods. You stand here, you stand there, let people move in and out of light, kind of like me dodging the B camera. There's great things if you take the time to look at your setups that you're going to find. And I don't want to bore you with more and more stories, but there are environments that will make a big difference. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do a no-no. We're going to turn on the house lights. And we're going to turn on the house lights all around. Anybody notice on their screen any color differences or changes? We don't want to touch anything. How does it look? Any different? Do we still have a beautiful image? Yes. So interestingly enough, we've actually created more ambience, which has filled in some of the dark holes. And that's because we have great technicians here that have actually been able to key in a great white balance for the camera setting. We have done this, we've done the paint box, we've done all these things to make sure the cameras are set right. But even in an environment like this, it doesn't require a lot more light to light the talent beautifully. So don't be afraid to try things before you start blacking everything in and turning everything off. You may find that simply by making sure you have the right color choice and the right settings on your camera that you can get by in a lot of environments that are going to work really well for you. So, you know, take into account what you're given and make the most of it. And you'll find that just adding one light, maybe as a catch light for someone's eye, is all you need. Because when you see the talent and you see the eyes and you're watching them, the fact that you see them means you're communicating with them. That's the whole big trick to lighting. Lighting is so simple, people get scared by the fact that it can't be that simple. It just can't be. The reality is 3 points of light: a key light, a fill light, and a backlight. So let's take advantage of the ambience that we have here in the studio. Did we switch to the one camera so we could see the setting now? It's not so dark. I'm hiding over here by Craig. It's a lot easier now to take in all of these. So if you had two cameras, one doing a much wider shot, or a B camera grabbing something that they're going to throw in the editorial to see where they are and who was there, as we've seen all through this politically active period of the last year and a half. Take advantage of what's there, add some lighting. Now what I can do is show you the value in the camera. If I turned off this side fill, let's see how her image changes. Does it change enough to be warranting this fill? Audience, with or without? With or without? With is good, but without works. Remember, it's all a matter of your own perception of what's going to get you hired next. With that off, I could come in right until I start to, go back to the other camera please, right until I start to come in frame. A little bit more frontal. I can take this light and I can go a little bit steeper. I love the neck shadows. I think it's very great dramatic lighting. And nobody's going to fire you for a shot like this, especially if you have such a beautiful talent to begin with. Now with that small change of just going a little higher and adding this fill in, what it does is it really does help bring out the color in the hair. So I'd say, yeah, it does work better. I can actually make this the dominant light just by dimming it up in intensity. But I'm always looking at the shadow line, so I don't want to get the shadow completely lit. But for some people, they want it completely lit. So we've created, all of a sudden, just a whole nother look. The background became a little less of value, but there's something back there giving her separation. We still have the edge light on her shoulders. And again, this is where having the proper tools is going to make a difference. I'm going to go and I'm going to spot this in on her shoulders. That's the beauty of the E&G. It's small, controllable, and focusable. So a little less intensity on her hair. Her top of her head is actually reflecting that light back at us more than lighting. I've got this hard shadow on her shoulder to separate her. If it's a little bit too much, I can flood it out. We don't want everything else other than the face to distract from the face, because that's where the image is coming from. That's where the message is coming from. And again, it goes back to the eyes. You got a catch light, you have some eye light, the the Mini Plus that many of you are familiar with on the camera. It just adds that glint like a catch light into the eyes. And so with just one light, you're able to do something. So the simplicity of this ambience and changing the lighting gave us a completely different look than what we looked at before. Now, if we change the house lights and turn them off again, we've got our pattern back on the wall. We've got a very strong key and fill now. Is this on auto, Iris? No. Oh. And that's the latitude of that chip. Now, one trick is you can overexpose the talent when they're older and have a couple of beauty wrinkles on them. Overexpose it a little bit, and that will soften the skin tones and come a little bit lower with this. I can come back around as a little siding. It makes it so easy when it's on a battery. I can't tell you. And you out there in the field running on batteries know what I'm talking about. It makes everything very portable, which is what the directors are always asking for. I didn't say over there, I said over there. They're comics, but they're in control. So we got to be quick, we got to be able to adapt. And the images, very simple in lighting. So with that, let's go over to our two-person, any other questions? Man, I can't believe they got 100 people in here. This is amazing. Wow, just kidding. So let's go now, if you would mind. We're going to have you sit in the seat here. We're going to move one of the cameras into position. So start off with a joke while we're taking a little bit of time to talk about this, get things set up. Irishman walks out of a pub. Hey, it could happen. It could happen. All right. So what we should probably do on this setup to give you a little bit more ambience while we're moving cameras around and not bore you or allow you a chance to check your email. Let's go to our overhead lights back on for a second. Anybody close to a wall switch, go ahead and turn the lights on. And I'm going to pan this camera around. We locked off. And you're going to see this great, look at that. Hey guys, everybody turn around and wave. There you go. That's what they do on Thanksgiving at the football games. Everybody's in the picture waving. I think one of the points we're trying to get across here is a number of you don't necessarily get out to light, but you're shipping lighting equipment. A number of you ship a lot of equipment that you don't get to use. I know Bexel has really got probably the best team of people here in all their departments that have an understanding of what the equipment does and how to fix it if it were to fail, how to talk somebody through a problem in the field. Lighting's a little different, and that's why we thought we'd give you an example of it in kind of real time with the actual units, because it's very, very interesting to see cases and cases and cases of lights going out, but not really realizing where they're using them or what they're doing. I think the benefit Joyce saw in putting this together was give you a real quick snapshot of not just the finished product lit, but how we're going about lighting it, especially with Litepanels, which is the company that started this whole market of understanding better living through better chemistry and lighting. Yeah, Alan, do you mind sitting in? Now, we're going to have to move you and your Apple box over. We're going to have to slide camera out because we were really diligent about making sure that we put the appropriate sticker in the background. So give them a minute. You can see they're setting up the camera. Now, while we're looking at this one shot, for instance, of Nikki, we put a light out in the hallway coming through the door. And I'm going to go out and show you with the beat camera while they're setting up, but we're all talking live what that is. We put a light out here that in essence is creating this highlight here. But I don't like the fact that the Bexel sticker is not getting enough light. So I'm going to close the door and I'm going to set this to making sure that we get just a little bit more light on it. So those of you watching this recognize, come on in. The value in having some sort of source light that's putting something of importance in the shot to a value that we see and recognize. A lot of times that's the logo of the sports group that's televising it, or the conventioneers, or what have you. So what we've done is we have set up basically a very simple two-person interview. We can take this camera here and we can tighten it up a little bit so that we don't get Alan's shoulder in the shot. And just keeping that other camera out. We can run supers on the side. But what we have is we have a 1x1 that is actually lighting our talent, and it's directly over the reporter that is doing the interview. So right now all the house lights are on in here. The overhead lights are on. We've added this key light, which is very directional. Notice that we're a little steeper because you can see the neck shadow on the neck, which I love. It's very much old-fashioned lighting. And we also have a backlight working for her, which is a Mini Plus. So we have a 1x1 as a key. There's no filter on it. There's no diffusion on it. It is a bicolor. We also have a Mini Plus working as a backlight. Now you can adjust that backlight to have a little bit more light on her hair. And that's your choice of how bright you want it to be. This is a Mini Plus spot. It is daylight balance. The key light is daylight balance. Alan has the same lighting fixtures lighting him. He has a 1x1 key light. He has a Mini Plus backlight. And the only thing that's missing is over here on the side, we have a 1x1 that I'm going to turn on that is far enough back that it's actually creating a fill for both of them. So when we switch back and forth from headshot to headshot, the light source is the same on both. We don't get confused left and right. Now I don't have anything in the background. I've got a door, but what I like about improvising on a set is let's just open the door up and get some color in the depth of field. Everybody would be laved, so there's no issue with sound. We've got people walking by. That's what happens in a building. People walk by. And the interview goes on. Now, maybe some people might want to have it completely enclosed and nobody watching because they're pterodactyls. But in reality, I love having something happening in the background as long as it's not too distracting. So without even lighting it, just putting something there is working for us. It's just a sliver of it. We've got the gray wall behind Alan that's doing a little bit of separation. He's got the key light. He's got his backlight. And it's this simple. So let's switch back and forth if we can between the two. And the question becomes from Alan to his guest is, why do you rent all the time from Bexel? What makes it so great? We know what makes it great. The people make it great, the equipment makes it great, and that's why they asked you to come in, because you're great. Let's go back to her shot for a second. I grew up with 7 brothers and sisters, 8 of us total. For those of you here, I am 6'8". I'll be 6'9" in April, but we're all tall. But the background there has got light in the background, and there is a little bit of an edge. So that backlight kind of sells, that light source on the side sells. But just by simply adjusting this backlight to maybe a different angle works better in regards to how we see her. Because I have this hot window back here, I can get away with a source that's more edgy than toppy or on the shoulders. And that's kind of nice, because with the darkness between the 2 glasses back there and that dark door, this gives her something as a separation amongst it. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring this arm around. I'm going to put this light in the arm. And I'm going to bring it in a little bit closer out of frame. I'm going to back it off a little bit, and I'm going to set it just like that. And we're lit, in a sense. It could be lit a lot of different ways. So let's turn off the ambient house lights, please. Anybody that's close to a switch? And look at the value change in the blacks and the grays. A little bit moodier. A little bit more focused on our talent. It really is becoming now, when you made this movie, did you realize all your co-stars were going to be murdered by a psychotic hockey player that was tired of this long-winded conversation about contracts? And she replies, of course, and they paid me lots of money to do it. So again, we gave you 2 examples of the same lighting setup. Excuse me for 1 second. I'm fighting a cold. Boo-hoo, poor Pat. We gave you 2 examples. We gave you an ambient feel. And let's switch back and forth between the 2. An ambient feel of the light, the location, more ambience. That camera can handle it with the values we set. A darker ambient, more mood. We can create backdrops with more color in it, something to separate it, make it a little bit more interesting. Put some Hampshire frost on the glass so we don't see everything outside, but we see a little bit of shadow or movement every now and then. And I think that becomes, again, your usage. So in this setup, 2 1x1s, a 1x1 as a cross fill for the 2 of them, 2 backlights with mini pluses for each. And then outside the door, the light we showed you earlier, and here it is again in the cut version, the Solo 4 coming through is just a little highlight back there, just to put something in the background but not make it too crazy. Any questions from anyone about this setup? It's real simple, isn't it? I mean, and again, it's where you put the lights, not necessarily how many or how bright it is. Again, we're working at 45 watts per 1x1, so we're just under 150 there, and about 7 watts per mini plus. So you can see our light levels are working. Our power consumption is minimal. All this is either on a battery or can run from a battery. So simplicity, again, being able to get up and get into a location and have them tell you. But I don't see any other way of offering up lighting for this setup other than more light, more light, more light. And again, that's where they want to get the exposure up high enough for maybe some talent that's gotten a little long-toothed to the point where they need some help. Yes?
I see that you don't have any kind of flags or any other kind of baffles.
Right.
Would you say that this type of lighting requires fewer accessories?
Yeah.
Fewer control elements besides the light themselves?
Yeah, that's a good question. And if it wasn't picked up on my lab, he's noticing that there's a lot less of the grip gear or the ancillary accessories that are normally seen with lighting. Again, I'm only concerned about one portion of the frame, and that is everything from here, if my hand's right, to here and what's behind it. I'm not worried about the spill. Our side fill that's filling both of them, I am concerned about. If I put a flag here and added another light for Alan, can we switch to Alan? So that's with the light on. I'm going to be a human flag. I'm going to flag that light off of him so it's just for our female talent. Well, I need to add something. So that means I'm adding another light. As far as soft boxes and scrims and nets or silks, again, it's in the eye of the beholder. There's a lot of people out there that have got soft boxes, like say a Chimera, 4 1x1s that Chimera offers, or for their Fernell units, or for their Lowell kits, or for this or that. And it goes back to what we had talked about earlier before you entered the room, which was about the fact that most lights will not be used raw, meaning without some sort of ancillary accessory, like a softbox or a frame of diffusion. And the point is, with so many sources in one fixture, we have a very broad and projected soft light. A fluorescent is always used, or a lot of times used, but the problem with a fluorescent is it's an ambient light. It goes everywhere. So when you put it up just because you're trying to get a soft effect, you're going to end up with a light that's going everywhere. So now it's filling in the background. So you'll see they'll squeeze the doors down or put black wrap around it. The idea with that is, if I can just get one light with a soft projected source, I can use that. And the fall off is with inverse law. It eventually is going to diminish to the point where I can look at the monitor and say, that's too much light. So what we see in the background of Nikki right now is her key light. If I was to turn this off, we've lost her key, but you can see how much of that light from her key is going to the background. If I know the background can't be that dark, there's just no way anybody's going to accept it unless it's a scene she's moving through in a feature film. I know that this amount of fill coming off this light has almost created a gradated light level look. It's almost as if I put a light back here and ran a flag through it. And you can see the gradation being darker down here and coming up into light here. So understanding what every light's doing when you're turning it on doesn't take 30 years of filmmaking. It just takes an open eye to looking at what that one light is doing to the rest of it. And a lot of times we'll say, somebody will come in and say, let me take a flag and cut the light off of there for you. No, I love what it's doing. Why build more work? And so you become more aware of the lighting as you realize how simple it is, but how it affects something else. And so with the fact that we know with what these lights are doing, we're getting the shot we want, we can go without a lot of that extra stuff. I think if you put talent in a chair under lighting, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to look at their entourage, their agent, their secretary, their psychoanalyst with the brush, their hairdresser, their makeup artist, and they're going to say, how's it look? How do I look? And if that person says, you look great, they don't care what you're using. But if that person looks at it and says, it's not very flattering, then you're going to have to be aware of that before they ask the question. You're going to have to know who your talent is and on the fly be able to make quick adjustments. So the less you have tied to your lights, the easier it is to move it around and get everybody to accept it. Battery options that I spoke of before become really invaluable. The simplicity of one light over a light with a bag, with a stand, with sandbags, with this and that. Suddenly now, this person is starting to feel really kind of not in a good mood to be interviewed because suddenly everybody's racing around to fix something. When you find camera people, cameramen, camera women, videographers, people who understand what they're going to be getting themselves into, they need to be right there and ready to make an adjustment because of the whims of someone else, because it is all about them. We have sports talent that stand up for a shot and they're always looking to somebody else. How do I look? Everybody's that way. It's human nature. Because a lot of people just don't like being put on camera. A lot of people love it, but for them, you can put them in any light. They usually don't care. And that's why also you see a lot of the cameras have these mini pluses over the lenses. There's a comfort factor in knowing that I have a little special light just for you. Because I know you're worried that you were out too late last night and a little bit of bags under your eyes. You put a little light into that, it softens it out and makes it kind of disappear. Traditionally, an on-camera light is something that is the mark of a professional, but also something that's very comforting to the talent being photographed. And nobody talks about it, but it's the reality of, I know you got a little something special for me right there. Any other questions? Hey, welcome back from checking your email. Just wanted to see if you guys out there had any questions. Send them in to Joyce. Anything else that we can talk about? Anybody have any questions about Lighting 101? I think what would be really invaluable is any of you that take the time to watch this video clip that'll be sent out later or that we're watching and streaming live or had a chance to catch a bit of it, feel free to contact Joyce and let her know whether it was of value, because I think the idea to do more of these, to give you more insight into specifics of products that move through the company is invaluable. Come on in. Come on in. Hey, how you doing? Come on in. Yeah, you're welcome. And the great thing about it also, remember, is let things happen. Come on over here and look from this point of view. It's great over here. There you go. We're just doing a little lighting setup. What do you think? All right, great. What's your name?
John.
Hey, John.
John, hey.
I'm just getting over a cold, so I'm not going to shake your head. What do you do?
Driver operations.
Excellent. So this John stepped in, looked at the lighting, looked at the setup, the cameras. He loves how it looks. He should be elevated to a cameraman. But the idea is what we're doing here is a setup for everyone, including yourself, that don't get a chance to actually see the equipment working, how we would use it. So there will be an opportunity for you to look at this whole session on your own when you have time, via an email and a link and stuff like that. So I want to say thank you, Nikki. Thank you very much. You were great this morning as talent. And Alan for being the pro that he is and sitting in. Kevin for your great work setting up the cameras. Gerard, thank you very much for switching. I'm going to pull my card out again for sound, which is David. Thanks, man. Sorry, like I said before, I'm a retard. I appreciate the hospitality. I appreciate the opportunity. And I think this concludes our live streaming, and we'll get back with a clip for you guys to watch at another time. Later.